I'm Kelly Garver with Stirk Family Law Group. In Illinois, circuit court judges are chosen by popular vote in partisan election and serve 6-year terms, after which they must compete in uncontested, nonpartisan retention elections to continue serving. In the 12th Judicial Circuit, comprised of Will County, Illinois, there are 2 contests for circuit judge on the November 8, 2018 ballot. Advocates of judicial elections contend that judges are public officials and that elections serve a useful purpose by holding them more accountable to voters. There is a debate and various opinions about judicial elections and whether or not the office should be filled through a merit selection process without the need for public elections. Irrespective of your position on whether or not judges should be elected, the fact remains that Illinois does have elections for circuit judges. At Stirk Family Law, we believe it is important that the public obtain information about a candidate and understand a candidate's judicial philosophy. The information from the forum presented today is simply an opportunity for the voters in the community to gain insight as the election process and the importance of knowing your judge. All candidates have been given an opportunity to participate, and the lack of participation today is not an indication of our support or non-support for that candidate. Our office does not support any one candidate, but firmly believes that the public needs to have as much information as possible to select the candidate they vote for in November 2018. There are 2 judgeship positions in the Will County Circuit Court. First, there are the elected judges, known as the circuit judges, who you vote for, and then there are the appointed judges, known as the associate judges, who are appointed by the circuit judges. This is an important process because you don't get to vote directly for the associate judges. A reason to knowingly participate in the judicial election process is due to the fact that the associate judges are appointed by a vote of the circuit judges within the same community. These are technical procedures that must be followed, but this is a crucial role filled by elected judges. While the forum cannot discuss specific cases or policy positions, the goal is to provide information and an opportunity to meet the candidates. We appreciate your time in listening today and hope you gain insight and understanding to the importance of this election.
Hi, I'm Craig Lyons with Sandler Training. Thank you for joining us today as we speak with the 2018 Will County Judicial Circuit Court candidates. Mr. Ben Braun has served for Will County as an associate judge for 12 years and is a Republican candidate for judge for the Circuit Court of Will County. Ms. Victoria McKay Kinnison spent 15 years as an attorney in Will County before being appointed an associate judge in 2011. Ms. Kinnison is a Republican candidate for judge for the Circuit Court of Will County. Candidates, what do you perceive as the greatest obstacles to justice, if any?
The greatest obstacle to justice currently in Will County is a lack of access to justice. I can tell you that being in the county for over 20 years and sitting as a judge now for 7 years, what we see is that a majority of individuals have difficulty getting access to justice because 50% of individuals that are in the family courts, whether they are there for divorce or paternity, orders of protection, small claims cases, 50% of those individuals don't have any attorney, and they are what we call self-represented. And they're not self-represented of their own choosing. That's because of necessity. They lack the money necessary to hire an attorney. And so we are constantly trying to improve the system at the courthouse to enable individuals that don't have an attorney to understand the process and the procedures necessary to get into court so that their issues can be addressed. That is our biggest concern currently.
As I travel around the county and knock on doors and talk to voters and residents, they typically have 2 criticisms about the court system. First, legal fees are too expensive. And second of all, the amount of time it takes to bring a case from start to a conclusion. And frankly, that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I'd like to see, as a circuit court judge, see that we instill a culture where cases are promptly moved to a conclusion. In other words, minimize the number of times people have to go to court. And I know if we can do that, then it will minimize the amount of expense that people have in legal fees.
Candidates, what do you consider to be your greatest strengths and weaknesses?
My greatest strength is passion for the law, passion for what I do every day to try and serve the citizens of Will County. It gives me the desire to want to get out every day and make sure that I am ready to administer justice as fairly and equitably as possible to the citizens. The weakness is probably my tendency to be a bit of a perfectionist. I can say that I sometimes over-prepare cases. Over-prepare in the sense that maybe I may write and rewrite decisions. Sometimes I will stay up extra late to try and research to find that special case that may be more dispositive. But truly this is a system that I have found to have worked for me over the years, and I don't believe that it has ever let me down or let any of the litigants down in front of me.
Well, I would say my greatest strengths, first of all, are my experience. I've been a judge for 12 years at this point. I have sat in pretty much every division of the courthouse, so I've heard a wide variety of cases. And during the course of those 12 years, I've presided over more than 100 criminal jury trials. So I've got a broad range of experience and a background in a number of areas of law. As far as weaknesses go, well, I'm glad you're not asking my wife that question. But I would say, as far as a weakness goes, I have high expectations of the lawyers that are in my courtroom. I know that they're being paid by their clients, and frankly, I like to see cases brought to a conclusion timely. So if a lawyer's unprepared or if they are not getting to the issue in the case or they're not adequately representing their client, in my mind, I can be a little bit short with them.
What is or will be, if elected, your general judicial philosophy?
My general judicial philosophy is to make sure that every litigant that appears in front of me is treated fairly and with dignity and respect. As a judge, my number one priority is to make sure that I am always following the law. It is my job to interpret the law and apply the facts of a given case to the law to make sure that a proper decision is reached.
My judicial philosophy is every case is important. If it's your daughter's traffic ticket, if it's your divorce case, if you're being sued because of an automobile accident that you're in, it's important. It's important to you. I also know that litigation is stressful, and the sooner we can move cases to a prompt and fair conclusion, the better it is for everyone.
Candidates, do you believe that the Will County juries adequately and fairly reflect the county at large, and if not, what can be done about it?
I can tell you that part of my responsibilities as associate judge in this last year has been to meet and speak to our jurors each week, and every week I see people from all around the county, and the system is set up as such to call individuals at random based upon records from the Secretary of State, the driver's license information, unemployment records, state of Illinois ID, and because it is a random selection, I believe that it is a fair system and adequate. Can it be improved upon? Absolutely. Could we see greater representation of minorities in the community? Yes, we could. And it is something that I believe our Judicial Conference of Chief Judges is looking into. They are working on ways to encourage different segments of the community to respond to the summons that are sent out. So that is something that I think we will continue to see progress in over the years.
In my 12 years on the bench, one of the responsibilities I've had is swearing in the jurors when they come into the courthouse on Monday mornings. Jurors are selected primarily from two pools. First of all, from the Secretary of State records. If you've got a driver's license or a state ID from the Secretary of State and you're over the age of 18, you're subject to being called for jury duty in Will County. And jurors are also drawn from the voting registration record. So if you're registered to vote, you're subject to being called. So I see people, I see the arrays of 300 and 400 people that come in on Monday mornings and swear them in. So I have a fair amount of experience in seeing who's coming into the courthouse to serve as a jury. And I believe that they do reflect the county at large, certainly those pools that they are drawn from. Additionally, having presided over more than 100 criminal jury trials, I see the smaller groups, the panels, that are brought into the courtroom in groups of 30, and they're generally winnowed down to 12 to 14 jurors that serve in a case. So I get a chance to see the makeup of those jurors. And frankly, as a judge, we have an obligation to see that those juries properly reflect the makeup of the county. And if I saw a panel that I did not feel was appropriate, I have the ability, in fact, really the obligation to discharge that panel and have the jury commission send up another panel.
Candidates, do you believe there is underrepresentation of minorities in the court system? And if so, how should the problem be addressed?
Underrepresentation is an interesting question because I can tell you, since I've spent my entire professional career here in Will County, over the last 20 plus years, I've seen the diversity in the legal community grow tremendously, both with women as well as minorities. And so I'm very happy to see that in the courthouse. When I walk out amongst the people in Joliet, I see attorneys of all different races, colors, gender. It's wonderful to see. I do see that our judiciary is also continuing to progress, and I believe that the county is doing very well in that regard.
This question really goes to one of the core values of our court system, which is impartiality. Can someone who's a different color from the judge, a different gender than the judge, perhaps someone that doesn't even speak English, can they feel like they can come into a courtroom in our county and, number one, receive a complete hearing, and number two, be treated fairly in the process and understand why the judge makes the decision that the judge makes? All of the candidates in these two judicial races were rated by the lawyers in this county through the Illinois State Bar Association, the Will County Bar Association. And out of all of those 6 candidates, I was ranked the highest in the categories of impartiality and sensitivity. So I feel like I can say with confidence, someone that doesn't look like me that comes into my courtroom can not only feel like they're going to receive a fair trial, they're going to receive a fair hearing.
Candidates, how do you avoid the rush to judgment that is often found in society and truly give a litigant an opportunity to be heard?
As a judge, it's important that we make sure that we engage in deliberative decision making. And that's a technique that is something that you learn as a judge and something that I've tried to perfect and continue to work on each day. So over the past 7 years, what I've learned as a judge is something that we all already understand to a certain extent, which is that no two people are exactly the same and no two cases are exactly the same. You need to treat every individual in every case as the unique person and case that they are. And so when we are working on deliberative decision making, we are talking about using tools such as checklists, evidence-based tools that enable us to have objective criteria that we can apply to make sure that we are taking our time to reach a fair decision.
In my 12 years on the bench, I've heard a number of high-profile cases, and I think your question really goes to the issue of integrity. Can we block out the noise that's going on around a case? All of the candidates in these races were rated by the lawyers, and integrity and impartiality were 2 of the categories that were dealt with. Integrity is important as far as this question goes because we take an oath to follow the law and make sure that we treat everybody fairly and not consider any evidence that's improper in the case. I was the highest rated candidate in both of those categories.
Candidates, how would you describe your judicial temperament?
I believe that I have a very calm and consistent temperament, and I say that not just based on my own perception, but it's something that as a judge we are evaluated on by the bar, the local attorneys who appear in front of me on a day-to-day basis, and so I have received very high marks for my temperament. And it's necessary as a judge, whether you are sitting in a family court or a criminal court, that certain court calls tend to be very emotional and can get rather chaotic. And it's important that your judge has the ability to maintain a coolness on the bench and also help to de-escalate any of the tempers that may be rising in the courtroom. And so I think I've been very successful in that area.
Well, after 12 years on the bench, I'm really an open book at this point. I would say, first of all, I'm consistent. When I walk into the courtroom in the morning and take the bench, I'm pretty much the same way every day. I'm not either too high or too low. Everybody knows what they're going to get when I sit down and start hearing cases. Number two, one of my priorities is being efficient. In Will County, we have some of the highest caseloads in the state. I covered a call this morning for another judge, 230 cases in a room that only seats about 40 to 45 people. And so I know we have to get through these cases efficiently and get people on to work or get their cases concluded. And we need to bring cases to a conclusion promptly because there are more cases coming into the system every day. So I try to be as efficient as possible. Number three, I'm deliberative. When I hear a motion or a trial, I take my time deciding it, and if it's a case that I need additional case law on or I need additional information, I don't have any problem taking that case under advisement and really thinking it through. Number four, I'm decisive. Once I make that decision, I make sure that I write out or that the attorneys give me a very clear order that tells me, or I list on that order, number one, what I relied upon and how the decision was made and how the law was applied. Because I not only want to make sure that the litigants understand how the decision was made, but if the case is appealed, that the appellate court understands my thought process.
Candidates, why should voters elect you?
I believe that the voters of Will County should elect me because based on my professional experience, both prior to becoming a judge and now with my 7 years on the bench, that I have the necessary knowledge and skills on the job, judicial experience necessary to do the job as circuit judge. It's a question that I try and answer often in this past year as I travel around the county. What I normally have to explain to people that are maybe not familiar with the differences between circuit judges and associate judges is that a circuit judge is elected by the voters, and one of their duties is to appoint associate judges, which is what I've been for 7 years. But circuit judges and associate judges essentially hear the same types of cases. It's just that circuit judges typically are the supervisors or managers of the other judges. They typically are the ones that act as the presiding judge in each different law division. They also tend to hear the more high-profile cases. They also do administrative functions, day-to-day functions, including managing a $25 million budget. They also are responsible for policy decisions, which are critical when we're talking about improving services for our citizens in Will County. And there's many other things that I could talk about, but I appreciate our time constraints. But so it is because of these differences, subtle differences, that I am running to be a circuit judge because I believe that I am the most qualified candidate in my race to do the job.
Well, I could sit here and tell you that voters should elect me because of my experience, the fact that I'm the highest rated candidate and certainly the highest rated candidate in my race in literally every category of the bar polls. But voters should really elect me because I'm trying to improve the court system. I want to see, first of all, that we instill a culture of productivity and efficiency so that we can do the litigants handle their cases promptly, bring them to a conclusion promptly. I want to see that we get the absolute best associate judges that we can on the bench, people that have a broad range of experience. And last, I want to see that the money that the county board allocates to our court system, $25 million a year, is appropriately spent. That's really why people should elect me, and frankly, I'm asking for their vote, and I'd be honored to have their vote.
I'm Craig Lyons. Thank you for joining us at the office of Stirk Family Law Group for this 2018 Will County Judicial Circuit Court Candidate Panel.